Greetings Ghost in the Shell fans. This week we received episode 6 of the new series, adapting chapter 8 of the original manga Dumb Barter. And for the first time in this series, it seems like Major Kusanagi might actually be settling into something resembling a normal life. She has an apartment, a long-term boyfriend, more on that later, and for once, she's not spending every waking moment chasing down terrorists and cyber criminals. But of course, none of that lasts long, as a figure from her past goes and blows up her home, sending Section 9 on a race against time to track down the man responsible, while uncovering a gruesome conspiracy that reaches all the way into public security itself, and a run-in with a very familiar looking giant six-legged tank. I won't lie, Section 9 gets put through the ringer in this episode. No one is safe, and Major Kusanagi comes closer to death than she ever has before, ending up face to face with a man who has sworn to get his revenge. But we'll be getting into all of that and more in today's video, from the sudden appearance of the Major's boyfriend, to the connection between this episode and that insane German think tank, and ultimately how faithfully Science Saru brings one of Shirow's most intense, but also really funny chapters to life. So without further ado, prepare your ghost line, and let's dive into episode 6 of The Ghost in the Shell. We open on a cyberbrain procedure being carried out on a mysterious man named Mr. Soma, the technician who is the same one who helped create the cyborg with Kusanagi and her friend back in episode 3, and his assistant are injecting micro machines into Mr. Soma's brain, allowing him to send and receive electrical signals instantaneously to exert control over another cyberbrain. In his case, Mr. Soma seems to be wishing to connect not just to another human, however, but also one housed inside a massive walking tank lurking in the background. It's May 2nd, 2030. Almost 5 months have passed since last episode, and we see that Major Kusanagi has started a relationship with a man working for Section 1 of Public Security. Oh, and she's changed her hair. That's nice. Before we move any further, yes, Major Kusanagi has a boyfriend. The boyfriend goes completely unnamed in the manga, and he's listed in the credits of the episode as simply boyfriend. Now, this information might come as a shocking revelation to a lot of people. Kusanagi with a boyfriend? But what about her girlfriends from episode 2? The depiction of Major Kusanagi's sexuality and the extent of her romantic relationships has varied widely over the course of the Ghost in the Shell franchise. Despite the focus mainly being on her relationships with other women, there are other examples of the Major dating men, most notably in Ghost in the Shell Arise. In Border 3 Ghost Tears, we see her in a relationship with a different man named Akira Jose, who funnily enough also happens to be attacked by a terrorist in his own home. If you want to learn more about Kusanagi's identity and her other romantic relationships, I have a whole section about it on my review of episode 2, so go check out that if you haven't already. I'll leave a link in the description. But the Major is dressed in her formal military uniform, about to head out to a meeting, when she and her boyfriend get a knock on the door from a neighbor. But instead, they're greeted by a shotgun blast straight through the wall. Their neighbor is strapped to a nail bomb, and before either of them can react, the bomb goes off, nearly leveling the entire apartment. Nice job on guard duty, Fuchikoma. Aramaki's meeting with Lieutenant Colonel Santos, the head of public security for an unnamed South American country, is interrupted by a call from Section 9 informing him that Kusanagi's apartment has been bombed. Section 9 immediately springs into action, with Ishikawa already on site while Aramaki and Bato rush to the hospital. As they arrive, we see Kusanagi and her boyfriend are safe, if a bit shaken up. Her boyfriend hands her a burnt bill, as it seems like he lost a bet of who would show up first, Section 9 or Section 1. And if you're wondering how they survived that explosion with barely a scratch, Shirow actually explains in the manga that their aquarium and bathroom were positioned right next to the front door, with the water presumably helping shield them from the blast. Aramaki is furious that the Major didn't reach out to tell him she was alright, and Bato over here looks like he's about to have a panic attack. Kusanagi's boyfriend is asked to leave so Section 9 can discuss the details of the incident, and when he does, Bato makes a sly comment to the Major, which earns him a coffee mug thrown right at his face. God, that's like the 3rd time she smacked him like this. I'm starting to really feel bad for Bato at this point.
Damn, that hurt.
Ishikawa investigates Kusanagi's apartment. He's joined by another member of Section 9 who makes his first appearance here, Paz. It's basically a blink and you'll miss it moment. Paz is probably the member of Section 9 that's least known and least talked about in Ghost in the Shell media. He does make some brief appearances in other works like Standalone Complex, where it's implied he used to work with the Yakuza, but in the manga he's literally in like 2 panels of this chapter, and that's really all there is to him. The Major reveals that she already has a feeling who was behind the attack. Toru Soma, the only terrorist Section 9 has failed to take down. We learn that an operation 4 years ago involving Soma led to the deaths of 2 of Kusanagi's men, and after Soma's son had bragged about torturing them, Kusanagi forced Soma to kill his own son. Soma escaped, however, and has apparently been plotting his revenge ever since. In the hospital, we learn that both Kusanagi and her boyfriend had asked their respective departments in public security for information on each other. I mean, given the line of work they're in, that kind of probing doesn't seem entirely unwarranted, but it also means her boyfriend had handed over details about Kusanagi to Section 1, potentially giving us a clue as to how Soma was able to track her down after all these years. As Bato leaves the hospital, Tokusa arrives and reveals that his car has been hijacked with a bomb. He offers to help, but Bato just brushes him off. So Tokusa and the Major speed off, attempting to draw Soma out into the open, with Kusanagi acting as the bait. Meanwhile, Ishikawa enters the office of an unknown man, wearing thermoptic camo which renders him completely invisible. He reveals himself to be part of Section 9, and the man behind the desk works for the Benton family, the powerful crime organization involved in drug trafficking and various criminal operations around the world. It appears that Toru Soma had hoped to work with the Benton family, but they turned him down, so he took matters into his own hands. Tokusa and Kusanagi arrive at an unmarked factory where they plan their stakeout, only to realize it's been overtaken by vagrants. It not only complicates their plans, but gives us another glimpse at just how desperate things are for a lot of people in Newport City. Also, is it just me, or does the Major's outfit here look like a Tusken Raider from Star Wars? Like, girl, what are you wearing right now? Matter of fact, Tokusa over here is looking like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. Alright, enough jokes. The car that had been tailing them arrives, and the Major quickly realizes these aren't ordinary lackeys. Then another vehicle approaches. The Fuchikoma unloads on it, seemingly destroying whatever's inside, only for something to emerge from the wreckage and absolutely tear the Fuchikoma apart. Okay, Bato is having a heart attack about the Major, now I'm having one about the Fuchikoma. Thankfully, the Fuchikoma is still operational, and the Major orders it to play dead, probably for the best. We then get our first look at the machine hiding inside the van, a massive, heavily armed, 6-legged tank known as a German think tank. The rest of Section 9 immediately starts scrambling to figure out where something like this came from, with Aramaki contacting Japan's Special Defense Force and Saito tracking down the tank's origins. Kusanagi tries to move the fight away from the civilians, where her and Tokusa realize that whoever they're fighting can't be simple terrorists. Whoever Soma has teamed up with here is a heavily armed, well-funded, and organized group. As they try to leave, they're ambushed again. Armor-piercing rounds tear through their car, and the think tank opens fire, severing the Major's arm. She escapes into an adjacent warehouse and prepares for another attacker, only to find herself face to face with her own boyfriend. So it turns out the Major's hunch was right after all. They weren't fighting Soma's terrorists, they were fighting Public Security Section 1 this whole time. The tail at the hospital, the bomb planted in Bato's car, the men in the warehouse, even the German think tank. It was Section 1 all along.
Everyone, stop firing! We're shooting at our own men!
Interestingly, the tank deployed here by Section 1 is the exact same model that gets delivered to Japan in Episode 5, the one that the Fuchikoma attempts to interface with. And remember, the Major pulls the plug on it right before the Fuchikoma is about to make a profound discovery. And while it's not confirmed to be the exact same tank, I don't think Shirow would have included this scene in the original manga without a reason. I think we're meant to be asking ourselves if this is the same tank the Fuchikoma interfaced with, and it's possible that the profound insight could have been information regarding Section 1 and their collusion with Sumo. Maybe the Major should have let the Fuchikoma interface after all. That might have saved her a huge headache here. With this revelation, Aramaki storms into Section 1's headquarters, pulls a gun on his colleague, and demands an explanation. And what he gets is some pretty disturbing government collusion. After being turned down by the Benton family, Toru Soma made a deal with Public Security Section 1. He promised them information on Anaconda, a high-profile drug lord from South America, and in exchange, Section 1 gave Soma everything he needed to track down Major Kusanagi. And that's the really messed up part. Section 1 was perfectly willing to hand one of their own, Major Kusanagi, one of the most valuable members of public security, over to a literal terrorist just to get information on Anaconda. Aramaki is understandably furious, telling the chief of Section 1 that he's played directly into Soma's hands and that no matter what happens, he will pay for this. The chief of Section 1 calls off the operation and orders his men to stand down, but Kusanagi's boyfriend is still determined to kill Soma himself. Meanwhile, a bloody and battered Tokusa is still trying to figure figure out what the hell is going on. I'm kinda lost too, man. This is getting crazy. Meanwhile, the Major is still fighting the think tank and things are not going well. Her boyfriend tries to fire a missile at it, only to discover that Soma has sabotaged it. Soma grabs Kusanagi by the head, and just before he's able to crush her skull, a massive explosion rocks the side of the tank. Shout out Borma for the absolute clutch save with the special SDF weapon. With the tank disabled, Soma stumbles out, receiving a massive punch from the Major's boyfriend. But Soma's time has run out. Fittingly, Major Kusanagi's face is the last thing he sees.
Sayonara, asshole. If you hate this world so much, hope you enjoy your stay in hell.
In the aftermath of the fight, Aramaki surmises that Soma probably didn't even know Anaconda and was simply using a false lead from the Benton family as bait for Section 1 all along. Kusanagi's boyfriend is worried that that means they're letting Anaconda walk free, but then Kusanagi reminds him, that meeting she was off to before the bombing took place, yeah, that was to meet with the head of public security of a certain nation in South America, because yes, Anaconda has already been assassinated by Kusanagi before any of this went down.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Now we also get a little post-credit scene here covering the very last panel of this chapter in the manga. Bato drops his car off at a repair shop where we see that it's been completely destroyed. So yes, he probably should have taken Tokusa up on that offer to help out with the bomb. We then overhear a news announcement that the chief of Section 1 is in critical condition following a hit and run. And wouldn't you know it, right at that moment, Borma pulls up with a cracked fender and headlight. So it looks like Section 9 has decided to take Aramaki's promise of justice into their own hands after all. But there we have it. That's episode 6 of The Ghost in the Shell. Strangely, as dark and as tense as this episode gets, I found myself smiling almost the entire time. Because, like, on paper, this is a pretty grim episode. The Major is almost killed by a nail bomb in her own apartment. We find out Japan's public security is in league with literal terrorists and drug lords. And despite that, we're able to get some pretty funny scenes. Like when Bato is arguing with the ambulance driver and their cars are literally rocking back and forth in this kind of cartoonish moment. Or even earlier when Bato is hit in the head by the Major's cup and he's got this huge bruise on his forehead and we see him all dizzy in the background at the hospital. But what I like most of all is how this episode portrays Section 9 not just as a unit but almost like a family. Compared to Section 1, who again seem to have no issues selling out other members of public security for some intel and leaving their entire team in the dark on their true motives, Section 9 is there for each other. Bato and Aramaki literally race to the hospital to check up on Kusanagi, and Togusa and Ishikawa and Borma go out of their way to keep her safe, even when she's being hunted by a literal super tank. It's these little character moments between members of Section 9 that reminds me why they're such an amazing cast of characters. I love Major Kusanagi, but she can only carry the show so far. You need a strong support network behind her to keep the narrative moving forward. And this is where I think Shirow's manga in this series by Science Saru really excels. And then of course there's Kusanagi herself. The fact that Shirow introduced her in a committed relationship really speaks volumes about where she is mentally and where he's taking her character. After everything she's gone through so far, she's clearly dealing with some kind of identity crisis. So I don't think it's a coincidence that 5 months after the previous chapter, we open with the Major trying to construct something resembling a normal human life. Because after everything that's happened, I think it's where Kusanagi learns that in her line of work, the things she's done, the things she's seen, this veil of normalcy that she tries to uphold can never last long, and the ghosts of her past will always come back to haunt her. It's also worth mentioning that this chapter's battle with the think tank served as the inspiration for the climax of Mamoru Oshii's 1995 film, with Major Kusanagi going head-on with a very similar looking tank and a similar scene where her head is almost crushed. Obviously, the circumstances surrounding this encounter are very different, but it's fascinating to see how Oshii took just a few pages of the original manga and turned them into one of the most intense and suspenseful moments in the film. The preview for next episode shows that it'll be covering the entirety of chapter 9 of the manga Bye Bye Clay. So for those following along, we're sitting at around page 236 right now. Well, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Ghost in the Shell season is in full swing here on my channel, so make sure you're subscribed if you don't want to miss my coverage of the series. And if you haven't caught up yet, be sure to check out my reviews of episodes 1 through 5 as well. If you have any thoughts about episode 6, leave them down in the comments section. I'm really curious what you all think about how they adapted the original manga so far. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.